Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I really want to thank you for having this hearing as your first hearing of this committee. I've been on this committee for many, many years and seen the, shall I say, evolution of thinking around climate change, and this panel is the perfect example of that. And so I want to start out in the grand tradition of our beloved friend and mentor, John Dingell, and ask you all a couple of questions that will only require a yes or no answer. The first question is, do you all agree that climate change is real and that human activity contributes to it, Doctor?
Yes.
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 Thank you. That in itself is a revolutionary step for this committee. Thank you all for that. My second question is, do you all agree that we need to address climate change in a way that builds the resilience of our communities, especially of those most vulnerable to climate impacts, while growing our economy and providing well-paying jobs? Doctor?
Resounding yes.
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 Absolutely yes.
Yes.
Unequivocally.
Thank you. My last yes or no question, so far you're all getting 100%. My last question is, do you agree that driving innovation in clean energy is an essential part of the solution and that it's time that we committed ourselves to doing that?
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. All of this agreement here in this panel with the Democratic and Republican witnesses makes me really hopeful that, as what Mr. Powell said, bipartisan cooperation on climate change can be attainable. And I want to thank all of you for committing to this. I just have a couple of more questions. One of my questions for you, Dr. Eckwursel, is, as you know, I'm from Colorado, and the last few years we have had the 30-year low in snowpack. And what's even worse than that is that the snow is melting earlier, and so the water is going down. Can you let us know what kind of impact climate change is going to continue to have on the snowpack in the western United States?
Thank you. And that snowpack is a critical water resource for Coloradans and all downstream in the Southwest. I want to say that there are three things that climate change does to the snowpack. It causes it to melt earlier. We have a shorter snow season. Even if you have an atmospheric river delivering wonderful amount of snow, the extra heat in the winter season is causing it to melt and sublimate and evaporate into the atmosphere. We have what's called a hot drought in the Colorado River. We can lose up to 50% of that flow just from the climate change impacts if we were to do unabated, course that we're on now.
Thank you. A second issue that we have, in particular in my congressional district, which is primarily Denver, is a persistent smog problem. And of course, we all know what the issues with smog are in terms of asthma, missed work and school days, outdoor recreation days, et cetera. But what can you tell us? And we talked a lot, and we know in the West about the impact of wildfires. What can you tell me about the impact of climate change on air pollution and smog?
We call it the climate penalty of smog. One of the ingredients you need for greater ozone ground level production is warmer temperatures. The warmer it is, the more smog you produce if you have those precursors of volatile organic carbon. And you need sunlight. Therefore, if we were to reduce global emissions, we would reduce the future climate penalty that could only get worse with climate change.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I just want to respond to a couple of the things our colleagues on the other side of the aisle have been saying. The first thing they've been saying is that, well, the rest of the world's not coming along. Well, number one, we're the ones that pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, not them. And so I would suggest maybe one of the first things we could do is get back into the Paris Climate Accords. And the second thing I will say is, just because other people aren't moving as quickly as we are, as the president said last night in the State of the Union, America is the best country in the world. Why don't we be the trendsetter? Why don't we be the one exporting all of our technology to China and India? Why don't we be the one setting the standard? And the last thing I'll say is, these other countries do want to act. Their citizens are demanding action for the same reason why we're demanding action. And I think that that's why this committee, this is just the first step. And I know you intend to work on legislation, and all of us intend to work on that with you, because we're actually going to move this through. And I know we can do it in a bipartisan way. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.